Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 10th meeting of the City of Tampa Variance Review Board. My name is Gary Brown, and I am the chairman. This evening, from my left, the members of the board are
Mike Villa,
Brett Feldman,
Lynn Hertak,
Susan Long.
Also in attendance this evening are Jared Simpson, the Assistant City Attorney, Tawanda Anthony, and Eileen Rosario Ducksworth of Land Development Coordination. Nobody from Natural Resources or Transportation appears to be here. I'll take just a few minutes to review tonight's procedures. Cases will be called in the order that they appear on the agenda. When your case number and the applicant's name are called, please stand on either aisle to the side of the room to acknowledge that you are here. Staff will then give a brief introduction to the board of each application. When you approach the podium, please speak into the microphone and state your name, address, and if you have been sworn in. The applicant and/or their agent will have 10 minutes to give testimony, present witnesses, and documentation as a part of their presentation. This is your time to present all of your evidence. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to the application will then have 3 minutes each. After that, the board may have an opportunity to ask questions regarding the application. Finally, the applicant will have an additional 5 minutes for rebuttal if needed. The time periods as stated will be kept by me, the chair. Any information such as pictures or plans that have not been previously submitted as a part of your petition and you intend to present at this hearing for consideration in support of your petition must be individually presented and accepted by the board. After acceptance by the board, you must submit the item to staff for it to be entered and made a part of the permanent record. The board bases its decision on competent and substantial evidence which is presented this evening and which meets the criteria required by the city's code of ordinances. The variance granted by the board will be only for what is shown on the site plan and will be compliant with any terms and conditions stated in the approval by the board. You must have 4 votes for the variance to be approved. If an insufficient vote is obtained, the case shall be automatically carried over for consideration at the board's next meeting. If approved, your variance will expire 2 years from today's date. All other city codes will need to be met. If your case is continued, it will be continued to either the October 8th or the November 12th public hearing dates. If you wish to appeal the Variance Review Board's decision to City Council, you must file a petition for review of a board decision within 10 business days of the decision. If your variance is granted, you will not be able to pull any permits until after the 10-day appeal period has passed. Your cooperation will help ensure that this meeting runs smoothly and will be greatly appreciated. Before we begin the first case, Mr. Pastor, would you like to say hi to everybody?
Hello, sorry I'm late, bad traffic.
Before we begin the first case, is there any business regarding the agenda that staff would like to address? Okay. With no further business to discuss, is there a motion? We don't have last month's minutes, so we'll waive those until the following month. Okay. I will now ask Mr. Simpson to address the board regarding any ex parte communications.
and thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, we'd like to ask the members of the board if there have been any ex parte communications regarding any of the matters this evening. Has anyone had any conversations, written or oral, regarding any of the cases outside of the hearing? Are there any conflicts of interest regarding any of the cases tonight? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. At this time, all persons who will be presenting evidence or testimony to the board shall rise and be sworn in. Just a minute.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, you may have a seat.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the first case, VRB 19-52.
Good evening, Board. Tawanda Anthony Land Development. The first case is VRB 1952. The property address is 3001 North Ola Avenue. The request before you is as follows. The applicant is seeking to reduce both side yard setbacks from 7 feet to 5 feet, the front yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet, and the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a new single-family residence. The lot is zoned RS50 and was recently purchased in 2018. The existing house was constructed in 1925. Here's an aerial of the property. And here's the subject property. And here's North Ola. Here's a view facing the front of the property. Here's a view facing north. Here's a view facing south. And here's the site plan. So here's North Ola. They're requesting to reduce the side yard setbacks to 5 feet and the front and the rear yard setback to 10 feet. As you can see, it's a pretty small lot. It's only 40 by 50. And it is a legal lot. Any questions for staff?
I don't see any. Okay, will the applicant or their agent please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in. You'll have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Matthew Kogan. My address is 3131 West Burke Street, Tampa, Florida 33614. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you have been sworn in, Mr. Kogan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
As Ms. Anthony mentioned, I purchased the property in middle of 2018, relatively small lot. It was a 35 by 50 lot. At that time, there was an alleyway that was vacated back in the early 19th century, was never recorded with the city, so went through the process and had that added into the property lines, if you will. We're asking to build a single-family home on the property. The structure on the property, originally we were going to salvage it. It was originally built in 1925. However, it's completely dilapidated. Roof is falling apart, structure is compromised. The old owner had a tenant in there that was unhappy with the living conditions, fairly so. We allowed them to stay and vacate the property on their own pace without charging any rent while we go through this whole process of requesting the variance. As of now, it is a 40 by 50 foot lot. We'd only pretty much get a 200 square foot house on there if we were to build with the current setbacks, which is why we're requesting the side setbacks to change from 7 to 5 feet, and respectively the front and the back to reduce from 20 to 10 feet. I have consulted with an architect. We can make it possible with a single-family home there by going up one floor and trying to maximize living space as well. Don't really have much else to say other than the property currently is an eyesore for the neighborhood, so we'd like to continue and try to make this better for everybody involved. I believe that's it. This is my first time, so I'm not sure if I need to provide any more than what I've already said.
Probably not.
Okay.
We'll ask the audience if they have anything that that they'd like to say, and then we may have some questions
Okay.
for you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application, either for or against? Okay, seeing none. Board, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? Doesn't appear that we have a lot of questions for you tonight. So you actually have 5 minutes to rebut, but we haven't asked any questions. So you must have done a good job. Ms. Long, do you have questions?
Yes, I have a question. You say this has to you have to encroach on the setbacks
Yes,
in
ma'am.
order to build a home on this, a new home.
Yes,
You're not
ma'am.
gonna maintain the same footprint, am I correct?
That's correct. It will be,
Have you brought any drawings on how this new house is gonna fit on the lot?
particularly as it relates to the distance between the exterior walls of the property to the property line. I do not have a diagram of that or something that would show that for you. However, the setbacks that I'm requesting would be the exact footprint of the property that we're requesting. So, can I clarify in a different way,
Is this
if
gonna
you
be
will?
one or a two-story?
The plan is for a two-story to maximize space.
Lynn, do you have any questions?
Yes, did you mean that the new house will be in the same footprint of the old house? You think you said the same lot lines, did you mean the same footprint?
In reference to the footprint exactly, forgive me, I didn't bring the, thank you. This is the architectural rendering for the property once it will be constructed. As you can see towards the top, 5 feet from the top, or, excuse me, that's the north side at the very top, 5 feet from there, 5 feet from the south, and again, 10 from the left side, which is the west side, and then the right side, which is the east side there. The property as it currently sits is not along these exact lines. It is a little bit of a more unique footprint of the property. And as you can see, it is slightly different from what we're planning on doing there.
Can you, oh, thank you.
That is the current structure there.
So you're actually gonna be moving the residence further away from the lot line as it currently stands to the backyard?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
because when I drove by this property yesterday, it's really close to the house behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a question. This property survey shows the property to be 50 by 35 feet wide, but it's 40 feet wide?
Correct, now it is. I was able to have the vacated alley on the south, down here. Sorry.
Okay.
It was originally split 5 feet for the property that I purchased, 5 feet for the neighbors. That was vacated in the 1930s, was not recorded, so I had to go down and record that with the county as well. So now it is a 40 by 50 lot.
Okay, and in doing such, you caused, because it appears the current property was over the property line.
Correct, it was.
So you fixed that also.
I did, inadvertently, but it
Right,
works.
okay. The only other questions that I have that might help the board, in the proposed plan that you don't have to show us,
Yes, sir.
is there going to be a garage?
That is the hope, and we're going to put the.
Of the footprint that you showed us, there is going to be a garage included?
Yes, sir, a single car garage.
Okay, are there any covered porches, front or rear, included in that footprint?
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's what you're calling the footprint, right?
Yes, sir, this is it
Okay.
right here.
Right.
I have no plans for a covered porch or a covered area.
Okay.
However, if that is required, I'd be.
Well, it's not required. It's good for the board to understand what you're trying to achieve since you don't have a plan to show us.
Yes, sir.
Because the board has to deal with other types of setback requests that in the future, if you were to come back and request, this porch because you have this hardship, you're in a situation today where you're explaining to us that you don't really know what you're gonna build. So if the board's inclined to approve this, it may make it really difficult to get anything added to it later on,
Understood.
okay? But that's not what we're here to consider. We're just trying to hear the evidence since you don't have a plan to show us. So kind of, this is the footprint. Yeah, and you could build a single room, right. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just wanted to, that you said that you had visited the site, and how many times did you visit the site? Just once? Or?
I just drove by.
You just drove by, okay. I just wanted, Florida Statute 286.0115, subparagraph C, 3, it does say that, that you can conduct an investigation in a site visit, but that does need to be made part of the record, and the statute seems to consider a site visit to be like an ex parte communication. So I'm glad that you did put it into the record. The statute requires it to be part of the record. So, but I just wanted to clarify that site visits are considered ex parte
Okay,
communications.
well, then you can just put me in as all of them, because I drove by all of them.
Okay, well, so I'm glad that we're talking about this now.
Thanks,
then.
I
So,
appreciate it.
But for each site where you did visit the
Okay.
site, just make sure that you say that, and then if the applicant has an issue with that,
Okay.
they can raise that. The statute considers site visits to be ex parte communications.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
all right, thank you for clarifying that. All right, so this concludes your entire presentation, et cetera?
Yes, sir.
All right, without any objection, I'll move to close the public hearing and entertain a motion from the board. Mr. Pester?
I'd like to move the variance request for case VRB 1952 for the property located at 3001 North Ola Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for reduction in side yard setbacks from 7 feet to 5 feet, and reduction in front and rear yard setbacks from 20 feet to 10 feet with encroachment of eaves and gutters based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record, and up to this public hearing of a necessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code. Specifically that this is an unusually small lot, that they are going to be putting the house within greater setbacks than the current house exists today, and that the house that's there cannot reasonably be salvaged.
All right, we have a motion for approval by Mr. Pester, a second by Mr. Feldman. Is there any board discussion before we take a vote? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. You've been approved 5-0, or excuse me, 6-0. That's it.
Thank you very much.
You're done. All right, our next applicant, BRB 19-89.
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, this is application BRB 1989. The property address is 4318 West Empedrado Street. The request is as follows. The applicant is seeking to reduce the corner yard setback from 15 feet to 10 feet to remodel and vest existing house. The property is zoned RS 100 and was purchased in 2018. The existing single-family residence was constructed in 1949. There is an active building permit to relocate the driveway to access from Manhattan Avenue to Empedrado Street. They did have to go through several approvals in order to relocate the driveway. They had to go through a design exception to reduce the number of parking spaces from 2 to 1, as well as a transportation design exception to reduce the corner clearance from 50 feet to 40 feet. Here's an aerial of the site. Here's the site here. There's West Empedrado and South Manhattan Avenue. Here's a view facing the front of the property. Here's a view from the corner along South Manhattan. And this is another view from Manhattan Avenue, and you can see when they back out, how they're backing out into the traffic. And this is the site plan. And this is South Manhattan. And here's the existing access. And now they're proposing to come in off of Empedrado Street.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
questions for the staff? Thank you. Will the applicant please come forward? State your name, address, and if you've been sworn in, you'll have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Hi, I'm Shantanese Baxter, and my address is 4318 West Empedrado Street.
And you have been sworn in, Ms. Baxter?
Yes, I have been.
Thank you.
So I am basically requesting to reduce the setback. I guess the code is for it to be 15 feet clearance on the side where where South Manhattan runs. We're not trying to change the basic current footprint of the house, but where it is constructed right now as it stands is at 10 feet. And so in order for us to make any changes in the home, which we're planning on doing, we have to get the variance to reduce from the 15 required by statute to the 10 where it currently lies. And that is all I have right now.
Okay. Well, we need to hear from you, which you're attempting to do.
Okay.
Are hardship conditions,
Yes.
anything that would be non-self-created,
Sorry about that.
characteristic of the property, that would make it virtually impossible for you to use the land for the purpose for which it was intended.
Okay.
Practical difficulty is another way to look at the issue. And that if the code as it currently exists were to be applied, would be unreasonable for you to be able to use the property the way it's zoned. So you've kind of
A little
told
bit
us
more.
a little bit. So
Yes,
just
sorry
try
about
to give us
that.
a little bit more.
Can I have
And
the
also any
on the site plan? I'm sorry. Yes, sir?
yeah any physical attributes of your property.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Apologize. Okay. Can you see that there? I think that's good. All right, so as it stands right now, the house is 816 square feet. And that just covers this space. This is our plan, what we plan on doing with the house. Right now, this is a covered porch, covered carport. It's open space. And we would like to build into this space to put our kitchen and living area in there, so we may make an additional bedroom here. Where the house, this is currently poured concrete area for the house right now. This is just unheated space, and so we'd like to enclose it here. Our driveway right now is not very usable. When we purchased the home and moved in and saw the home, South Manhattan was closed for renovations. They were working on the water and the drainage. And so there was no traffic or very little traffic in and out of there. However, when they completed it and opened Manhattan, it is a dragway. And so it's very difficult to get in and out of there, and we have 2 young children. And additionally, we considered building out in front of the house, but there is a huge, beautiful grand tree in our yard right here. And also my neighbors have 2 to 3 grand trees, 3 grand trees in their yard. So constructing home living space in the front, it's not possible given the amount of square footage in the space that we would be able to build. So that's why we're moving our driveway to this side, because that'll help with our safety concerns as well, for Manhattan, and just going to move into the space that we already have here in this covered porch area. And so we really just want to enclose it in, but we cannot, I guess, make changes on the interior of the home without the approval, because we don't have the 15 feet here on the side that's required by statute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on or against this application? Seeing none, board, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? I just have a question regarding off-street parking.
Yes.
Is there any off-street parking on either Manhattan or, what's the cross street?
Empedrado, no.
Empedrado?
No.
Yeah, there is no,
No, you just have to park on the street.
Yeah.
That is
well, I mean, you can't
yeah.
park on the street is what you're
Right,
saying.
right.
Okay, so by changing this driveway configuration, are you helping yourself by providing
Absolutely.
some additional parking maybe?
Yes, and safer parking
Yeah, as
as
you
well.
testified to back out.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? You have 5 minutes for rebuttal based on the limited questions that we asked. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I do not.
Okay, well, without objection, I will move to close the public hearing. Board, is there a motion?
All right, I don't see anything, anything out of line with this. I think it makes sense, particularly since the home is older, doesn't meet the current code, and it's a very small house. So I'm going to move that the variance request for case VRB 1989 for property located at 4318 West Empedrado Street in Tampa, presented at the public hearing to seek relief from section 27-290, and that's in order to reduce the corner yard, which is the west side setback, from 15 feet to 10 feet, and that's to remodel and invest the existing 1949 home. That'll also enable in the remodeling process to relocate the driveway from South Manhattan Avenue, which is, of course, high traffic and probably somewhat dangerous, and then they'll be adding some square footage. So.
Okay, we have a motion for approval by Mr. Villa, seconded by Ms. Long. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Been approved 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, our next case, VRB 19-90, 3208 West San Jose Street.
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, this is application VRB 1990. The property address is 3208 West San Jose Street. Per section 27-156, the applicant is seeking to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 13.8 feet, and the corner yard setback from 7 feet to 0 feet. The applicant is seeking to construct a new front porch and vest the existing house. The property is zoned RS60 and was purchased in 2017. The existing single-family residence was constructed in 1925. A tree consultation was conducted in June of 2017. This is an aerial of the property. Here's the subject property. This is West San Jose Street. Here's a view facing the front of the property, and this is the front porch as it exists. There's a view facing west, and this is the chimney that's also under consideration to vest in the side yard. And here's a view facing east. And this is the site plan. this is the front porch here where they're adding on, and you can see the columns, and that's the front setback that they're asking for the reduction. So at 13.8 feet, as well as the side setback. And it would go from 7 feet to 0 feet. And this is the survey. And it kind of gives you an idea of the existing conditions of the property. And you can see the chimney here. And then you can also see that the structure itself is pretty close to the side setback, to the property line. And on the opposite side, they have 8.7 feet. Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah.
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, I do not see that request before us.
But what is the zoning setback requirement for the accessory structure?
So it should be 3 feet on both sides.
Okay, and if, I guess the permit work is for the main structure, correct?
Let me grab the notice requirement and see what they noticed for
Yeah,
exactly.
see what they noticed.
But they plan on, if you look at the one before, they plan to
Coming up.
remove
Never
it.
mind, never mind. I'm getting ahead of the presentation, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have shown me that survey.
And this is the notice. So they did request the 7 to 0 for the new residential existing house, and to reduce the front setback from 25 to 13.8 for the
Okay,
front
no,
porch.
I think my question was answered, or will be answered.
Thank you.
Applicant, please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
Dave Allen, 3208 West San Jose Street, and yes, I've been sworn in. And good evening, thanks for your time. So there's really kind of two requests with this variance, and just want to start off here to clarify that we're not looking to reduce the side yard setback to 0 feet. After meeting with a lot of our neighbors and speaking with people in the real estate business and contractors, we fully understand that there's probably a lot of questions and concerns when you first see that. All that applies to is the existing structure of the home. And so when we first filled out our application, we were under the impression that the existing structure needed to be included in that request to reduce the setback, which is why it was set to 0. Obviously, in hindsight, if I could take it back, we would revise that and change it to what we're actually trying to accomplish and do. And all that applies here for the first part of this request is that we're looking to reduce the side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet 2 inches to build a third bedroom in our backyard. And then here's the site plan I just highlighted, the 5 foot 2 inch request for the setback from the 7 feet. So it's a 1 foot 10 inch difference. And that's for a third bedroom. And the second part of this is to reduce that front yard setback from 25 feet to 13.8 feet. The existing setback is 13.8 feet for the front porch. It's currently an uncovered concrete slab that acts as our porch, and what we're simply looking to do there is build up on that existing structure, put a cover on it, which would then just make the porch covered, and we have no intentions of enclosing that structure and plan on keeping it open air throughout the entire time we live there. So we did send a revised hardship a couple weeks ago that I hopefully would provide more clarity and detail around the issue with the reduction to 0 foot setback. We did outline kind of the reasons for it, as well as what we're actually trying to accomplish, which is once again that 7 feet to 5 feet 2 inches. So hopefully that helped out a bit. We sent that over about 3 weeks ago, I believe. So just to highlight some of the maybe what we think are justifications and hardship for the changes to the backyard. So as you saw from some of the pages earlier, we have a very, very large, very beautiful oak tree in our front yard. It's at the front left of our house. It pretty much takes over our entire house at the top end, so we have no ability to build up. We have no intention of affecting that tree, damaging it whatsoever by making any changes to our home. So we don't want to touch the tree, and most likely can't. Our house is also built in 1925, and it has a lot of character. We want to keep the original structure, the original look and feel, and the integrity of the home as much as possible. So really our only option to build out extra room in our home is to build out on the back and add on. We are expecting our first child this February, so we're trying to make room for a growing family. And so once again, our option is to build out in the back, which is why we're requesting that reduction to the side yard setback of 7 feet to 5 feet 2 inches. The reason that it's also not on the right side of the home, as you can see once again on the site plan here, there's an extremely large oak tree in our neighbor's yard on the right side, which is right up on the property line. So the root system, as well as the tree being that close, doesn't allow us to go any further than our contractor and what the site plan says here. And so that's why we have it at 5 feet 2 inches, which is 1 foot 10 inches from the 7 foot original requirement. And that's once again to just build existing space to accommodate our growing family. And then on the front yard setback, these are the plans for what we're looking to do. So I'll just let you look at these for a second. I'll show you a few more pictures, but this would be the cover to the existing uncovered porch, which once again is already at the existing setback of 13 feet 8 inches. We're just looking to build up on those pylons and then cover it. And as you can see here, we're looking to keep this as an open air structure. There's no plans whatsoever to close this off at any point in time or to put any air conditioning units or anything of the like. This is going to be an open air front porch structure. The hardship for the front porch, once again, comes back to the tree. So as you can imagine, with a tree this size, with an uncovered porch, between rainy season and all the debris with dirt, leaves, pollen, it becomes kind of a nightmare to, one, keep it clean, which is not necessarily the hardship that we're trying to justify here, but that is an issue because not only for our neighbors on the outside, also us looking at this, it's very, very difficult to keep clean. But most importantly, as you can see here, there are spots that accumulate water and puddle when it rains. And then if left unkept for maybe a day or two, you get this slippery moss. And this becomes a safety hazard. And I've slipped on it, my wife slipped on it, we've had delivery people almost slip on it. So our major concern is obviously that that would continue if this was left uncovered. Any visitors to the home, delivery people, myself, my wife, children along the way, there is that safety hazard with how slippery this gets when it does rain. Not to mention that it does become quite an eyesore with how dirty it gets with everything falling from that massive oak tree in the front yard. And then this is just more pictures of what it looks like when it rains. This is also that huge oak tree in our neighbor's yard on the right side that's not allowing us to build any closer than the site plan notates for what we're looking to build out on the backyard for, once again, just the reduction of 1 feet 10 inches from 7 to 5 feet 2 inches. And that's all all the prepared comments I had.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on or against this application? If so, come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
If I may move forward to the board, I have a letter that I prepared that I would like to submit for record.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Vlaja Timoshenko. I live at 3206 West San Jose Street, Tampa, Florida 33629, and I have been sworn in. I have known this property since January 2009. My property abuts the applicant's property, and I'm directly impacted by the proposed variance request. I would like to submit into the record the letter with attachments I just provided detailing my concerns regarding this request. I will brief a summary of those concerns. Regarding the front yard setback variance request to reduce the front yard setback from 25 to 13 feet 8 inches, this request does have a described hardship, and therefore I support this requested reduction so that the applicant can construct a porch cover only and should not be applied to the entire front of the house. Regarding the side setback variance request to reduce the side yard setback from 7 to 0 feet and 5 feet 2 inches for the proposed addition to the house, I do not support this requested reduction. The petitioner's variance application statement of hardship, Exhibit A1, dated July 2nd, 2019, and the supplemental supporting hardship statement do not validate or support the request. These difficulties are not unique and singular with respect to the property, as they are very common with properties built during the same time period and similarly located. Further, approval of the subject variance would set a precedence for future setback variance requests. There is no hardship that supports reducing the side setback for a new addition to any distance less than 7 feet. Additionally, the grand tree does not influence or restrict any design to the rear of the house. The applicant obtained a tree removal and pruning permit in June 2019 and removed the tree canopy away from the front and rear of the house. Please see attachments 1 and 2 of my letter. There is an existing significant water runoff drainage issue occurring during rainfall that originates from the petitioner's northeast corner of the home. During any rainfall, stormwater pours directly on the ground at the property line and pools accumulates onto my driveway. This water runoff causes significant water buildup, erosion, and potential water damage. Please see attachments 3 or 4 of my letter. Approving a variance with the side setback would further exacerbate this existing condition, potentially reducing the impervious area by reducing the volume area by 1.8 feet by 20 feet for the stormwater retention to be properly conveyed from back to the front yard. Reference C of Tampa Technical Standard Manual for Private Development. Additionally, the driveway of my property measures at 12 feet in width and is approximately 2 feet from the applicant's house and less than 1 foot from their chimney. The close proximity of the applicant's home, including the petitioner's chimney, which is located at or near the property line of my driveway as built, currently impedes access and freedom of movement. Reducing the setback to 0 or any distance less than permitted by code would further exacerbate, limit, and restrict the ability to safely utilize my driveway. In summary, I respectfully request the board's consideration to grant the request for a reduction on the front yard setback from 25 to 13 feet to allow construction of a porch cover only, and deny the request for a reduction of the side setback variance from 7 to 0 feet or 7 to 5 feet 2 inches as shown on the site plan for the proposed addition submitted in the variance with the variance application. Thank you for your consideration.
You're welcome. Thank you for being succinct and direct. Is there anyone else that would like to speak either for or against this application? Okay, seeing none, board, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Feldman?
For the applicant, I just have a couple clarification questions.
Yep.
First of all, you mentioned the front porch would be unenclosed, and it is your plan to keep it unenclosed?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. The existing home, which you said was built in 1925?
Yes.
Right, and it was built in this configuration, in this footprint at that time?
I can't say specifically.
All right, my question is really not to have you go back to 1925.
Yeah.
When did you acquire it?
2017, it was September 2017.
Okay.
So since we acquired it, nothing's changed.
There you go. That's what I needed to know. The chimney sits essentially at 0?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. And you're not going to make any changes to the existing footprint, but for the addition of the bedroom in the back. That's your plan.
Correct.
Why is it that, just for argument's sake, that the bedroom in the back can't be constructed to 7 feet instead of 5.2?
Sure, yeah, absolutely fair question. And so as I mentioned, we do have limited room to build in the back. And when you combine that with the inability to build up, what we're trying to do is maximize space as much as possible without intruding too much within the line. And so when we met with contractors to design this site plan with those plans in mind, This is what they came up with and felt was reasonable given those considerations.
What is I can't quite read it here. What is the size of the bedroom in square footage that you were looking to add? Looks like it's 20 feet long by 21.
That's 20 by 21, 8. I think.
Okay.
And so there's an existing structure there. Essentially, we'd be expanding it both to the left and then just a little bit further back.
Okay, so I get that you're going into the backyard, and I get that you're lining it up with the existing structure. What is there a back porch there right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Okay, so the boundary of the back porch currently goes to 5.2 on the west side?
Oh, no. So there is a back porch. It does not go, it's well, oh gosh, I don't even know. It's easily 20 feet off the boundary or something along those lines.
Okay.
The footprint of the porch is going to be quite a bit smaller than the footprint of the proposal for that room. The porch is also more aligned in between the garage and then the bedroom we're proposing to build. Does that make sense?
Do you have, staff,
think-
could you put
yeah.
the existing survey back up on the overhead? I think he can point. You know, that drawing that got me confused.
Yeah, so this is existing right now.
Okay.
So effectively what we're trying to do is move this way and then a little bit that way. So we're making that room larger to accommodate, or to create more space to accommodate family.
And again, there's nothing wrong with creating space, and you need your living space, and you
Sure.
need those kinds of things. The question is, like I said, for argument's sake, what's with the additional, 1 foot 10 inches that cuts into there? If you're going to be building it, why not go to the 7 feet?
Yeah, and that's something that we would absolutely consider and be open to. Once again, the goal there was just to maximize space given the limited amount that we have to extend in the back.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other board members? Mr. Prescott? No? Mr. Vito?
Just wondering, and this may be a question for staff, but are we not required to vest the existing house to whatever that line is that it's on now, if they're to do any remodeling?
Towanda Anthony Land Development, you do not have to vest the existing house. It's really what's before you tonight. He's asked for the 7-0, but if he wanted to change the request to just vest the addition in the rear, to just ask for the addition in the rear, he could do that. It would just, if a storm came along or something happened, the house would not be able to be constructed in the current footprint. So we do advise the applicants of that, and that's why usually they do request the vesting of the existing structure.
I question that, counsel. I thought that if a permit was being pulled on a primary structure, that all setbacks had to be acknowledged, and if they didn't meet current code, they would have to be vested in or changed to the minimums.
Right, I think what this conversation comes up a lot when we have existing structures. When something is built and it was legally allowed to be built to that setback at the time, they're allowed to maintain that for that structure. That's called a non-conforming use.
Right.
And just by virtue of it being non-conforming does not entitle someone to a variance, because you're allowed to keep a non-conforming structure. So there's no hardship in a non-conformity because you're allowed to have it. But a non-conformity goes away when it's enlarged, extended. It can't be extended or intensified, and if it's destroyed, then whatever is built after that will need to be built to the current setback. I think what Ms. Anthony is saying is that the board could grant the variance for what's existing, and then it would no longer be non-conforming. At that point, there would be a new setback created, which would be what is existing there today. And at that point, if the structure did become destroyed or whatever was built after that it would be allowed to be built to the newly created setback by the board.
No, that wasn't the question. The question was, doesn't the zoning code require the vesting in this case for the nonconformity of the existing structure, because the existing structure, like you said, is being added on to, and therefore, the setback
Let me clarify.
is per the site plan. If we're approving the site plan.
Right.
Okay.
You're not required to grant a variance to vest a nonconformity. If they want to enlarge it, then a variance would be required, because a nonconformity cannot be enlarged.
Okay.
But they would still need to show the hardship and meet the criteria for the variance in order to get the variance.
But he's asking to enlarge it.
He is asking to enlarge.
Right,
So he had to notice his neighbors of the existing setbacks,
right.
which in this case is 0 because of the chimney, per the testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So he's correct in his notice, right?
I don't see an issue with it, and if he wants to reduce that from 0 to 5.2 or 5 foot 2 inches, I think that the board could grant the 5.2 instead, but not for what's existing, because it's already sitting at 0. So that portion would need to go to 0, but the addition would need.
But it would have to be vested to 0. In order to do the addition, you have to vest the existing, don't you?
Yeah, my understanding,
Right.
as a contractor pulling permits on an existing structure like this, that the first thing they do is look at the existing setbacks, and if they don't comply, they tell you to go to the VRB and get it vested, because you're adding on to the structure.
Right.
So you may not be adding on to that side in this case. He's not adding on to the side, making it worse, okay, of the existing footprint. Yes, he's adding an addition that is less than 7 feet, which we're discussing as to whether or not he has a hardship to do that. But the neighbor that did testify is objecting to is objecting to an existing condition that he's not changing. He's not asking to change it. He's asking to build further away than 0 feet with the 5.2 or whatever it is. And yeah, we can still question that aspect. I understand that. But my experience on this board has always been that the property owners are required to ask for the actual condition to be vested when they're trying to pull it.
In order to expand.
Yeah, in order to expand.
Right,
Whether
I
it's
don't
front,
disagree.
side, back, whatever. So that's, I think, was the question.
I have a
Right, I
pivot
don't
to
disagree
that
with
question.
Yeah.
Let's say that we discuss and decide that we want to vest the existing structure because it's there and he intends to keep it, but we're not okay with encroachment of the new expansion into the 7 feet. If we only vested the existing structure, he could still go back and permit an expansion in the back that met all current setbacks without us, right? We're only needed if he wants to encroach further than the current setbacks on the addition.
Right, so if it was the board's, if it was the decision of the board that you wanted to limit that, you would have to put some kind of condition in your motion limiting that.
Well, it's limited to the site plan. If you only vest the existing structure, then the 0 feet can only occur where it occurs today, right?
Like the chimney.
Right.
Okay.
And if the structure, if the vesting was approved and the structure got wiped out tomorrow, it's our understanding in the past that he couldn't come back. He could come back and build in the exact same footprint,
Yeah.
but he couldn't make modifications to that footprint without coming back in front of the board again.
Right.
Right.
Simply stated. I mean, it's a little more complicated, but yeah. Okay. Are we clear?
So then I wonder, and you'll know better than me, if he was going for 5.2 feet for the addition, was that properly noticed? Because it's not mentioned. It's only mentioned the 7 to 0, which occurs in either way, whether you vest or you expand.
Isn't
It's
the
really
site
two
plan-
issues.
Isn't the site plan a part of the notice process, the mailing anyway? And
I believe it is, and
This
we
is
can get
less
clarity
than
from
that.
staff on what was mailed out. And
Yeah, it's less than what was asked, so it's probably okay.
Yeah, I
typically,
think he's
that's
okay.
That's what I
typically
think he's
that's
okay.
our position on that.
Yeah.
Less is okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was the site plan mailed out with the notice?
To the neighbors, the good neighbor notice?
Yeah,
It was not.
it was not.
We did note this in the amended hardship criteria statement that we sent in a few weeks back with, what we're talking about now with the 052, as obviously it's a pretty convoluted topic, so we did want to notate that in our hardship criteria statement that we sent in probably 3-4 weeks ago.
Towanda Anthony Land Development, they are not required to provide the site plan, only the
Okay.
good neighbor notice and the mailing, with the exception of the participating
Okay.
organizations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, people can look it up if they need.
Yeah, or show up tonight.
All right. Okay. Well, I think I have enough at least to discuss.
Do you have any questions, Lynn? This one?
I have one for the neighbor.
Sure.
Mr. Yes, sir. Do you understand now that the application, when it talks about 0 feet, is talking about the existing home that's been there for a while?
Yes, sir, there's a multifaceted approach in regards to the variance request. One, to vest for the chimney as well as where the structure is set.
You don't have any objections to that portion?
Correct. I have also, correct, yes, sir. I do have an objection to moving the side setback to 5.2 based upon the criteria established in my letter, supported by my brief. Yes, sir. So,
Okay, but so your only concern is on the back addition, you would prefer that it be at 7 feet instead of 5.2?
yes, sir, based upon the fact that no hardship identified, the potential for swale issues and the like. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So clarified.
Okay, applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
So, so I know Vijay and I had an initial meeting. We went through probably about an hour, walking through the property, what we're trying to accomplish. This is when there were additional questions, and very understandably so, given some of the concerns and questions regarding the 0 versus 5.2 setback. We had just emailed over the information, hopefully clarifying that, and hadn't heard anything back since. So, a bit of a surprise, but at the end of the day, fully understand the concerns and issues that he's bringing up. And we're here to work with the city council. We're here to work with the neighborhood, our neighbors. We had 5 neighbors write support letters. We've had no objections whatsoever to the front porch, or excuse me, the front yard setback. Even in the 2 that wrote objection letters, which were specifically geared towards the side yard setback, they had no issue and stated they had no issue with the front yard setback. So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is, with the limited space that we do have, maximize that space to accommodate for our growing family, while also keeping the integrity, the characteristics, the look and feel of the exterior of our home that hopefully then complements our neighborhood as well, to try to keep that intact, and also hopefully increasing the value of our property, and therefore increasing the value of the property of those around us by building this addition. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So without board objection, I'll move to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
So, question for Jared. I'm thinking the way that this was noticed, you could do an approval with a condition that could approve the front setback and vest the side yard setback for the existing structure, and the condition being that it grants no variance for additions. And then there's no there would be nothing to deny in that scenario. That addresses all items, is that right? If that's what the board votes.
Would the goal of such a motion be to not to allow the
Yes.
addition in the back with the 5'2", but just to
Right.
essentially
Vest the existing.
that's what's existing?
And reduce the front yard.
I think that if, I don't see any legal issue with a motion like that.
Okay.
Just to follow up on that, I like the idea. I'm just wondering if it might be cleaner to just say we'll approve it to 7 feet on the addition.
We don't need to approve that, do we?
We don't need to approve that, but,
Okay, that's fine. I get it.
all right, do what you gotta do.
Okay, I'll make it a pass at it. Move that variance request for case VRB 1990, located at 3208 West San Jose Street, as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing, for a reduction in the front yard setback from 25 feet to 13 feet 8 inches, and the side yard setback from 7 feet to 0 feet, with encroachment for eaves and gutters, with the following conditions: that the side yard reduction from 7 feet to 0 feet be for the existing structure only, and that any additions be required to meet current setback requirements, in this case 7 feet on the side yard, and that the porch never be enclosed. That said variance as condition be granted based upon the applicant presenting competent substantial evidence in the record at this public hearing of a necessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code. Specifically that this is an old structure that was built to compliance at the time it was built, that they have a need for a covered porch on the front due to some safety concerns, that they would like to vest the existing structure that they live in for compliance, so they can continue to occupy it in that manner.
Okay, we have a motion for a conditional approval by Mr. Pasteur and a second by Mr. Villa. Is there any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we have 5 for and 1 against. You've been approved. 5-1 with the conditions as stated. All right, we'll call the next case, VRB 19-91, located at 1318 South Moody.
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, this is application number VRB 1991. The property address is 1318 West South Moody Avenue. The request is as follows. The applicant is seeking to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet and both side yard setbacks from 7 feet to 2 feet to construct a single-family residence and fire emergency exit stairs. The property is zoned RM16 and was purchased in 2007. The existing single-family residence was constructed in 1925. Here's an aerial of the property. Here's the subject property. It's the South Moody Avenue. Here's a view facing the front of the property. Here's a view facing west. Here's another view of the property, and you can see the corner. This is a corner lot, so it's a through lot, and also this is a corner side yard. And this is another view, and this is Mississippi Street, and you can just see the view heading down Mississippi. This is Alabama, and this is why it's a through lot, because you have 2 frontages. Now here's the site plan. So this is Moody Avenue, this is Alabama Avenue. It is a through lot, so they have two fronts. Along Moody, they're meeting the 25-foot front setback. Along Alabama, they're at 18 feet. And they're asking to reduce that from the 25 feet that's required because it is a front yard to the 18 feet. Even though it looks like it will function as a rear yard. Any
You said
questions for
18
staff?
feet, or is it 13.8? It says 18, okay, it's a typo on here then.
13.8, is that right?
Well, it's 18 in their package. Any other questions? Thank you. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn.
Steve McElhaney, yes, I've been sworn. I'm representing Jocelyn Camp, who is the trustee for this property. As Tawanda's pointed out, we don't have a double whammy, we have a triple whammy. We have the two front yards, the one on Moody, the one on Alabama, and the corner yard on Mississippi. So what we're asking for is relief from the Alabama side, and all of the properties that front on Moody access the rear of their garages on Alabama. There are no front yard facing homes on Alabama, so it's consistent all along that side of the street. As you were told by the staff, this is an RM 16 property, and the whole area is zoned for multifamily of some type. Here's a diagram showing you basically where we're asking for the relief. And the side yard setback relief is for these stairs on either side that are required by the fire department for access for the above garage bedrooms. And then the relief on the rear is being requested from 25 to 18 for the parking areas and the access to the garages, 2-car garages on each side, and then 2-car spaces on the drive aisle path. This is the subject property, and you can see it's immediately adjacent to commercial properties that front on Howard all along here, apartment buildings back here, other apartments and duplexes are also located on Moody all along in there. This is a typical frontage on the Moody side that we're proposing, and that'll be landscaped and look just like a front yard, so you have the walk-up going into the 2 units, one on either side. This is a zoning map, and it shows you that this is a subject property, and it's located right in the middle of the RM16 property, RM16 zoning district, and then it's adjacent to PDs and commercial all along the other side. The request for the stairs is an egress from the bedroom on the second level above the garage, and you have seen this design before. And again, this is not occupancy area. This is for egress only, and we would propose that never be enclosed and turned into occupancy. The only thing that ever happens underneath there is normally that's where they're storing garbage cans. On the site plan, I've highlighted the areas that are affected. The stairs extend 21 feet from the rear of the building to the second level, and then this is where the building edge is, and then this is the rear off of Alabama. Currently, this is what's located at the corner of Alabama and Mississippi, and this will be removed. There are no trees on site that will be affected by this proposed development, nor are they affected by the variances that are being requested. So that brings us to really the crux of the matter, which is this isn't about occupancy space except for the area in the rear, we're calling the rear on Alabama. It does have to do with the exit stairs. They are not increasing the area of the building itself, but they are facilitating the exit from the second floor. And so you ask, why we need an exit stair there? Because that bedroom cannot exit through the adjacent bedrooms on the other side. So you have to have your own means of egress. To my knowledge, if you look at the site plan, you'll see on the Mississippi side where the stair is being requested, it fronts on a street, so there are no adjacent property owners that would be affected by that stair. And from what I understand is that the builder has talked to the other property owner on the inside at 1316 Moody, and he had no objection to the stair being. From what I understand from the bill. If that's not accurate, then I didn't have that conversation, so that's what I'm being told. So anyway, the front of the property will be developed as if it faces on Moody, and the rear will be functioning as is on Alabama, as all the other properties do function currently. There are, as I said, there are no trees that are affected by this development, and in terms of the criteria, the location of this property being on a corner with two fronts creates the difficulties, the practical difficulties and the hardship. The comprehensive plan speaks to relief generally in terms of what can and can't be built, and it's anticipated with these kind of setbacks it would be an extraordinary hardship on whoever goes into this property. Since it is zoned RM16, it's not necessarily going to be redeveloped as a single-family residence, but it will be developed as a duplex. Whether this particular design goes through, we would appreciate your support for that. But again, it's not a matter of being single-family. It's not a matter of aesthetics of what it looks like. But if you don't build something nice, it's not going to sell. We've had other projects in the area that are very similar to this. And I know that you've heard me say before that but for the fact the fire marshal wants an exit from a bedroom which is isolated, that we wouldn't be here before you, with the exception of the access relief on the rear. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. We didn't create that condition. The zoning code is really what we're responding to in terms of setbacks. And it really wasn't until we got into the project that we realized that it was a double front. And we were the ones who brought it to the attention of the staff and said, hey, we probably didn't notice correctly because there's a double front and a corner that we have to deal with. So those are extraordinary conditions. They are not created by the owner of that property. They're created by the code itself. And there are provisions for providing relief for that with respect to the code and injuring any other person. You have a street on one side and an internal setback on the other side, which is, as I said, not to be ever enclosed. It is for relief for exiting, and it extends 21 feet into from the rear of the building. So in terms of the overall dimensions of the property, it's relatively minor. So anyway, we respectfully request your approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. I do have 2 letters of support that I think the staff already has and may be in your package. If not, I'll hand them to
Yeah,
staff.
if you'd like to turn them in and make them a part of the record, just to be sure. Does
And,
that conclude your presentation?
It does. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and obviously, I'll be listening to the comments from the neighbors and responding accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, we'll hold all questions until after we've heard from others. If anyone else would like to come up and speak either on behalf of or against this application, please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Tom Gacio, G-A-C-I-O. I live at 1402 South Moody Avenue, and I have been sworn.
Okay.
I'll put this up, and I think this was already outlined or put up here by the applicant. The way that this building is designed, it is a multi-family residence. It should have 2 units, 1 unit here and 1 unit here. But the way it's designed is that there's separate bedrooms in the back that are not connected to the building itself. And as a result of the design that they want to put there, that's what requires the setbacks for the stairs that go up into these 2 back bedrooms. They're characterizing these as bedrooms, but that property, that the picture that they just showed you, is another multifamily unit that they placed about 2 or 3 doors down to the north of this property. And what happens is they rent out these rooms as Airbnbs, and we know that they do that because, and we're going to have other individuals that are going to testify to you that we know that happens because they can see people coming in and out of that residence with those 2 bedrooms in the back rented out as Airbnbs, and they also advertise them as Airbnbs, creating a lot more traffic, creating a lot more parking issues, and creating other hardships. But what I wanted to address, because you're going to hear a lot of other things from the other neighbors, but I wanted to address is the criteria. I hope I'm reading this right, but one of the criteria is that the hardship or practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant, and a self-created hardship or practical difficulty shall not justify a variance. But for the fact that they've designed this structure the way that they've designed it, to have these 2 bedrooms separated from the main structure, I mean, commonsensically, they have created the hardship or the practical difficulty. And is it practically impossible for using this property for the purpose intended if you don't create the hardship, if you don't approve the variance? I don't think so. So you'll hear from the other neighbors, you'll hear about the safety concerns that we have. You'll hear about the way, and I'd like to actually add, how many minutes do I have left?
You're just about done. You got 3 seconds.
It does not comply with the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. The Tampa Comprehensive Plan says specifically you want to sustain and enhance an attractive and safe city, and you want to strengthen and protect the residential neighborhoods from development pressure. And in this case, that property is going to be used for development pressure and for Airbnbs. There's no doubt about it that that's the way they're going to market that property. And it's as a result of their very own design.
Okay, I think you've made
Thank you.
that point. Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to talk on or against this, for or against this application? State your name, address, and if you've been sworn.
My name is Paul E. Dodson, 1316 South Moody Avenue. I've been sworn in.
Okay.
I've lived at this address for the past 25 years. It used to mean something to live in the 1925 bungalow I live in, but now it's being essentially the term of the year, it seems like, tear down. So I guess I live in a tear down. 1316, 1318, 1314. I'm going to be the ham in the sandwich between these two big monstrosities, and that's what I'm going to call it. A 2-story, 20-foot tall monstrosity is what this is. I can only state emotionally here because I've been tending to that property at 1318 for the past 22 years, maintaining the lawn for the 3 sisters that live there. So what he was talking about in terms of the unit upstairs on this building that they're proposing from the applicant, he's being disingenuous with you. I don't know if he means to be, but it's not just a bedroom. It's an apartment. It's like a separate apartment, 500 square feet with a kitchen and bedroom and living area. For the past 12 months, my neighbor to my north, I used to be able to look out and see oak trees and everything else. Now all I now see is about 10 windows looking at me and a wall and the staircase that leads up to that unit. And they advertise on Airbnb. They've had a constant flow of people coming and going, which has created a big problem in terms of parking. They advertise free parking, and you know, we don't really have a place to park other than on the street. So they advertise a free parking on Moody. And if you're familiar with that area, you got Bella's, you got Sally O'Neill's. Mississippi's like the runway to get to Palmacia Country Club. And on any given Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, you have a huge overflow of parking as it is. There's no traffic calming devices on Mississippi. So it becomes very dangerous trying to pull out and going back to Howard or even going to McDill. You can't, with the existing structure that's there now, it's hard and dangerous to look out and see when you pull out. So in addition to this 1318 address I mentioned earlier, you got the Soho apartment complex behind us. People that come to park there, they are only permitted for 2 people to visit. So they also park on the street, which creates a huge strain on the parking. The neighbors on 1318 have 4 vehicles.
Can you wrap it up? Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, well, those are my 2 main issues, but as you probably can tell, I'm in strenuous opposition of it. I would rather see a single-family residence, not a duplex, because that's what it is. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to come forward? Please come forward, state your name, address, and if you've been sworn in. And you'll have 3 minutes.
I'll make it quick. My name is Mac Lynch. I live at 1312, the other side of the house, other side from Paul, from the new development. Our concerns are that they do run Airbnbs out of the back. I have the stairwell right next to my house on the other side. People come up and down the stairwell all night long. And the variance seems to be a little bit closer than 7 feet to the property line because I can reach out and touch. The streets are very crowded. Our kids, it's a very single-family home street, and it's already taxed as far as traffic, like all the neighbors have said. And we're just concerned about, putting another house this size on the street. The house they built already is 2,800 square feet on each side, and that's why they need the variance. It is maxed out. They take, just like Paul described, a 1925 bungalow, tear it down and build that. Mississippi is very busy every morning coming out. You have to kind of ease out, and you're already going to go closer, which means it's going to be impossible to see around the Howard traffic. I have 2 kids. There's other kids on the street. How do you go to school? Just like Paul talked about, when they build that, you're not going to be able to see. You can barely see now. That's dangerous. All we need is another person dying, just like the lady died on Bay Shore, last year. Someone else getting hit on Howard. We live in a great neighborhood. We have a lot of great businesses, and it's part of living down there. But building another home of this size in this variance, it's just not necessary. Build a single-family home, renovate the house that's there. We all love that. But to build another home of this size, which is a minimum of 2 people, you're talking about 6 to 8 more cars minimum. and it's ridiculous. Not to mention the fact, like I said, you just can't see. Once you build that, you'll never be able to see to make that turn. Bella's, towards Fresh Kitchen, all that. It's just really busy. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? State your name, address, and if you've been sworn in.
My name is Yolanda Gassio, and I live at 1402 South Moody. So my house is,
Have you been sworn?
yes,
Okay.
my house is the one that's on the other side of Mississippi. I just wanted to show you the street here. You know, actually, I don't have any pictures of the street. So the gentleman that was up here said that our street was mostly duplexes, and that's not true. Our street is 2.5 blocks long. That's it. It's 2.5 blocks long. On one end, right by the hotel, the Epicurean, is that Soho condos, and then on the other side, 2.5 blocks later, are the funky villas, and then there's a condo across from that. That's the half block. On the two main blocks, there's only 2 duplexes. There's one on the west side, and then the one that they just built. Everybody else is a single-family home. So it's not really accurate to say that most of the neighborhood is apartments. Yes, we do have apartments, I will grant you that, but the 2 main streets only have 2. Now, this lot is not a big lot. They choose to put a big, 2 big houses there that have detached apartments. They have detached apartments. The problem with this is several. There is a safety concern. Number one, I don't see any plans for a sidewalk, and even if they put a sidewalk, the sidewalk that's going to be there is going to be so small that it's going to be pointless. We have a sidewalk on our side that is a sidewalk, and it's a wide sidewalk, but it doesn't accommodate all the people that walk in our neighborhood, because we do have a walkable neighborhood, and we do have the businesses of Howard, on Howard, that are Bella's and Fresh Kitchen, and people do park on our street because they want to go to those things, and we're fine with that. We're fine with that. That's part of living in the city. The problem is that when you, as a resident, a homeowner, cannot find parking spaces, that becomes a problem. Now, on the back side is an alley. It's there, Alabama. He's calling it two front yards. That's not a front yard. That's an alley. It's a street named Alabama, but there are no houses facing that street. It's all the back of houses and the back of businesses. So we have a lot of walk traffic. On Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there is a lot of people walking around. Right now, they're walking through the yard of that empty house.
Right. Can you wrap up for us for 3 minutes?
So to put that without any kind of relief is a safety issue for the people there. Traffic, people can be on the street and there could be accidents, and there's already been 3 major accidents in that one little block of pedestrians and also car accidents.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak? You know the routine, right?
My name's Mike Zickmiller. I live at 1307 South Moody, and I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
My house is across the street, actually, from my neighbors who just spoke, but my concern is the same as theirs, the parking, and I just don't think that our block can sustain another unit just like this that was built a year or 2 ago that we've been experiencing. And mainly the reason that the gentleman over here spoke about is it's not just a single family home. It's going to be 2 townhouses plus 2 more in the back. So I just don't know how our block's going to sustain all that, especially with the parking. We're all, my wife and I have to share a single
file lane driveway, so we shuffle cars in and out. We try not to park on the street to accommodate everyone. But we're already having the Soho apartments and all their friends and everything parking in front, which a lot of times, there's just people that block our driveway. And so we have to somehow figure out how to get out of our driveway with cars halfway parked in. I also have 2 kids, and they're young, so that's the safety concern of them playing out on the street or on the block. And then the other thing is, I'm all for beautifying our neighborhood, and I think the point is a single-family home would be great. This big duplex, again, whatever it is, townhouse, it just won't work for our block. I envision all us and our neighbors having a nice canopy tree block, which 10 years ago when we bought the house, we planted 2 nice trees to kind of get that going. And this definitely doesn't support kind of the vision for our block. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? You state your name, address, and if you've been sworn.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Gonzalez-Finn, and I live at 1317 South Moody, and I've been at that home for over 30 years. And I live. And you've been sworn in? And I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
And I live catty corner to the proposed property that they'd like to build. The current situation does not cause the applicant hardship, but what they propose to do does cause the neighborhood hardship. The current property as it stands does have a driveway, and it does accommodate 2 cars. What they're proposing to put there in place of this beautiful home that could be renovated and continue to match the neighborhood in which we live in and accommodate a single-family home would. It's very emotional for me because I have a 17-year-old daughter, and every day that she gets out into her car to head to school, I watch her. The way that the homes are currently built, it makes it really difficult for a car to be able to make a left or a right-hand turn. The traffic on Mississippi has increased tenfold in the time that I have been there. The parking is an issue, but every time that she leaves the house, you have to actually inch up. And I encourage you, before you approve this variance, to go drive down my street, Moody, and try to make a left or a right. And you will find that the front end of your car is almost in Mississippi because you cannot see beyond the current fencing and beyond the current foliage that's out there. If they build this proposed building, we will not be able to see at all. I don't know how we would make left and right-hand turns there. So I am, my issues are the traffic, the parking, and the safety. And that has increased already in our current environment, and by building this particular structure, you're adding 2 more family homes, you're adding potentially 4 more drivers, and you're also adding in the back those spaces that they're calling bedrooms, which are really concealed apartments, more people coming into the neighborhood that we're having to accommodate on our small little street in the neighborhood in which we live.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Chris Franceschi. I live at 1316 South Moody, right next to one of the buildings that has already been placed in that street. I have been sworn in.
Thank you.
Like my husband said, and I think it's a safety issue, it's a parking issue. We can only park on one side of the street, and when the trash man comes, it's always, he gets blocked because if somebody parks on the wrong side, that there's no way of getting through. My concern is that there, God forbid, there were to be an emergency, which if we have had in the South Tower apartments before, emergency vehicles will not be able to get through at any given time because people park, whether it's a free-for-all come Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I strongly oppose to, I'm going to be like the lady in the Up house from Walt Disney, in my little house between this 2-story monstrosity and the other one that's planning on being built right next to me. I've been at my house for 25 years. In a personal level, I know all my neighbors, and I would like to keep the 1924-25 bungalows there if we can. Like I said, my main concern is already the parking, the capability of emergency vehicles to go through, the fact that they raised the lot, and I already have erosion coming underneath the fence to my one side where that building was built, because they're built higher than the level my house is built at. Finally, I mean, if I can put in perspective the level of frustration when you come, I'm a probation officer, I work late into the night, and I come to my house at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I gotta play Ring Around the Rosie, trying to figure out where I can park. There's no parking spot, so I go to Alabama behind my house, wake up my family, please open the gates. I can't open the gates to park because there's somebody else parked in front of my gate. I mean, I've been there for 25 years, and this is the worst I have ever seen. I think that if we add on to the already stress that we have, it's kind of unbearable to live like that under those conditions. I mean, I'm all for progress. I know South Howard is hot right now, and I don't mind having close by neighbors, but I don't want them on top of me. Not to mention Mississippi has become the Grand Prix of Monte Carlo. People drive through there at unbelievable speeds, and when they turn, and if they build that tall 2 stories, they won't be able to see where they're turning. And it's just a recipe for disaster. So that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
All right. My name is Frank Rabaski. I live at 1418 South Moody, and I have been sworn in. I think I'm probably wrapping this up then. You've heard concerns of self-created hardship. You've heard of the concerns for the safety for the pedestrians as being a very popular cut-through to the Soho district. The concerns for the drivers being able to come in and out. Parking issues, traffic issues, the congestion on the neighbors, a use that is contrary to what you've been told this would be for, and the domino effect of a building like this in a very, very visible location. All of this has come from people who live right at that corner, and I have been asked to come in and represent the rest of the neighborhood, those of us who are not exactly at this corner, but what everyone else feels. I am exactly 1 block south from them. I am at the corner of Moody and Stroud. So when I moved in 6 or 7 years ago, the concern of the neighborhood was very evident that I was going to do something similar to what they're actually doing. The relief of the neighborhood to find that I was taking in an eyesore and trying to renovate it up to the standard that they had established for a historic 1925 neighborhood was equally apparent. And over those 6 or 7 years, as I have planted trees, busted out concrete, and planted gardens at the corners, it's trying to meet that standard. We understand that this is zoned, that allows for a duplex. What we don't understand is why this cannot be designed in a manner that is consistent to this neighborhood. They are mostly single-family homes, as you heard earlier. Our former president, Vicki Pelia, who a very diligent woman that I believe you probably know, she has stayed on top of this. She said that every effort that she made to reach their representatives, including Steve, were not returned. When we asked for a postponement so that we could work with him and talk about the development, he cited reasons why he couldn't do that. He has said that they've reached out to the neighbor next door, 1316, and that the neighbor was fine with it. That neighbor's actually here saying that that is not true. We've tried everything that we can do to work with him. We're not getting anywhere with that. So we ask that the board help us protect the character of a historic 1925 neighborhood. We want to believe that all the effort that we have made to keep this a beautiful, walkable neighborhood has been for a good reason. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Very good. questions for the applicant or folks who have spoken and/or staff? Mr. McElhaney, yeah.
I think I have a number.
Actually, I've got a series of questions, and you're going to be towards the end of my list of questions. First question is for Mr. Simpson. What consideration, if any, are we as a board permitted to give as to the use of the property between multifamily and single-family homes?
I would just point the board back to the criteria, and specifically I would point to criteria number 3 that says that the variance, if granted, will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance.
I appreciate that, but I'd like a little bit more clarity. What I'm trying to figure out is whether we can consider the use of the property, how that property is being used, when we are making a decision as to whether or not to grant a variance, whether it's being utilized as a multifamily or single-family home. Are we permitted to give the use in that capacity consideration?
Right. Typically, the answer is no, that the use of the property is the purview of the zoning administrator, and that if, as was alleged here, that the property is going to be used as an Airbnb or some type of illegal transient rental unit, that would be a code enforcement issue that would not be subject to the
Not our
purview
issue,
of the
someone
board.
else's issue.
All of that said, there is this criteria here that says that the variance cannot substantially interfere with the health, safety, or welfare of others. And I think if there was a connection to be made between the granting of the variance, because what's really in front of the board is the reduction of the setback, not whether or not the property is going to be an Airbnb.
That's what I was trying
But
to
if the reduction of the setback enables the Airbnb, or if the need for the reduction of the setback is because they're trying to use it as an Airbnb, then there may be some connection there. That would be for the board to determine.
Okay. Second question is for Ms. Anthony. We have 2 legal frontages on this property, correct?
Correct.
If the Alabama frontage were not a usable road, if it were just a rear yard, what would be the setback in this zoning, under this zoning?
Under RM16, it would be 15 feet.
15 feet, okay. Thank you, that helps. All right, Mr. McElhaney. Thank you, Ms. Anthony.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the rear setback is for other properties on this street? What is the typical rear setback on the Alabama side?
12 to 13 feet.
Okay. Can you place the plan on the screen for me, please?
It's up.
It's already there.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
I have one that's highlighted that shows the stairs in the rear, if you like.
Okay, but I want to focus not on the stairs, but on the garages.
Could you blow that up a little bit larger? No, other way. There you go.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
What is, without those stairs, what is the setback to the garage?
It's 18 feet.
No, I'm sorry. Side setback, my apologies.
I think that it comes out a little bit, but it's probably, I don't know, the dimension's not in there.
I think it is.
I think it, yeah.
It's, it may be 5 feet.
5 feet. So without the stairs, you're seeking to go to 5 feet. So you had said earlier there would be
I
no
said
living.
Except for the garage area, I said.
Does the bedroom on top of that garage line up with the garage wall?
It probably does, yes.
So what you said earlier is inaccurate.
Well, I said except for the garage, that the garage had extra space because of that setback. I was talking about principally the reason for the side yard setback is for the stairs.
Why can we not place the stairs inside the courtyard or some other place where the stairs don't encroach on the
Well, this,
setback?
I was gonna look on here, but I can show you here. This is an open deck below. It's an atrium to provide some protected space, that's open space for the owners.
But that didn't answer my question.
Okay, maybe I didn't hear you
All
correctly.
right, I'll try again. Why can the stairs, the emergency exit stairs, why do they need to go in the setback? Why can't they go somewhere else that's inside the
I don't think you have enough
within-
room. You only have 11 feet. It's a 21-foot run.
So you couldn't do a double layer or switchback stair on the courtyard side?
I don't know. We didn't look at that, to my knowledge.
Okay. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
You could do I mean, if you're saying, could you do a scissor with a switchback and a
In-
landing? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. And
Thank you.
Do I, I mean, I don't mind answering your questions, but I get a chance to rebut. don't I?
You do later. We're going to answer one. We're just
Okay.
asking questions right now.
All right, that's fine.
Lynn, do you have a question?
I do. My first question, RM16, how many units can one build?
You want me to answer that or her?
No,
No,
staff, please.
Ms. Anthony.
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, based on the size of the property, they're allowed 2 units.
2 units, okay. But effectively, what's being said is emergency stairs are not actually emergency stairs. They're the only stairs. Is that correct?
They're the only stairs for the loft apartments in the back. But
So why are they called emergency stairs?
because you have to have a means of egress that doesn't go through another bedroom. The second floor bedrooms, you would have to take, these are only 18 feet wide units. So you would have to take 3 feet and create an interior hallway on each side. So you're down to, 14 feet. or
But
something.
you're not answering my question, though. My question is, if the emergency stairs went away, how would you get there? What would
You
the
wouldn't.
regular stairs be?
You wouldn't have one.
Okay, so there wouldn't be stairs if there weren't emergency.
No,
Thank
you would have to take them inside the garage, which would eliminate one of the parking spaces. Or, as Mr. Feldman pointed out, if you could do it, you would have to do a scissor stair in the atrium there, the deck area. You'd have to accommodate it in some other way to have it.
All right, Mr. Pastor?
So each of these individual rooms with entry stairs are separate from each other, right?
Yes.
And there are 2 other units on the property that can be accessed from the first floor from the front of the property.
Yes.
So there are 4 separate units.
No, these are attached, they are physically attached to the whole building.
Not occupiably, though. Like, I can't walk.
You can't walk.
If I wanted to go into each space, I would have to go into 4 separate spaces.
Well, you'd have to go on 2 on each side, that's correct.
Yes, okay, so there are 4 separate units. That's a zoning issue, that's not our issue. I just want to point it out.
Well, it doesn't have a kitchen, so it is not classified as a unit. Another kitchen would be prohibited.
Yeah.
And then that would make it a legally occupiable unit. So with it being attached, it's part of the overall complex.
Okay, question?
So that would trigger you with a code enforcement issue, so it's.
What is the hardship that is preventing the 25-foot rear front yard setback?
Well, we already are meeting the 25 feet on the Moody side.
Yes.
And the rest of the sides on Alabama, all of those are garages.
Yeah.
Their setbacks are ranging from 12 to 13 feet, and we've measured them.
Yeah.
And we need that space in order to get a car off of that street and have a legitimate space for it to park.
Right.
13 feet is not deep enough, and transportation has recommended that we go to the 18 feet.
Totally got that. So you're saying then consistency of the neighborhood?
Yeah, we're.
Okay, so then my question is, you want to reduce it down to 18, right? The requirement is 25.
Correct,
So it's not 12 or 13, it's 25.
correct.
I'm asking why you need 18, and you say because 12 or 13 is not enough, so I need to make it 18. That's not really the question. You want to make it less than 25. That's the issue.
Right, less
If we
than,
want to talk about consistency of the neighborhood, it sounds like this building doesn't meet consistency of the neighborhood, so I don't know if we want to go down that road on this. So my point is, what is the hardship of the property that is requiring reduction from 25 feet to 18 feet? Regardless of the 12 or 13 feet of the other single-family homes, that is essentially irrelevant.
right, is to accommodate a car, so that you have a car.
Yeah, so you can't accommodate a car in 25 feet?
No, of course you can.
Okay.
Of course you can, sir. 18 is more than what would be required for RM 16, which would have been 15 feet. It's a staff testified.
Sounds like 25 is required,
If it weren't a street,
but it is a street,
I got that.
so,
But if it were not a street, it would be 15 feet.
okay,
And
irrelevant.
even,
Because if it wasn't a street, you couldn't drive a car on it, so it would be irrelevant.
well, you could have a driveway.
Okay,
You could have a driveway that accessed something else, but it's classified as a street,
uh-huh.
so.
So the setback's 25 feet. So
That's
what
correct.
is dictating the need to reduce that to 18 feet?
To accommodate a car.
You can accommodate a car in 18 feet, yes?
I got that.
Yes or no?
Sure,
Okay, so can you accommodate a car in 25 feet?
sure.
Okay, can you accommodate another car with the extra 7 feet you're picking up?
No, but you
No.
have the backing
So
space.
you're not answering my question. I guess we could just pretend like we don't understand each other, but my point is, you want to park a car, you can do that with 25 feet.
That's correct.
So there's no need to reduce it to 18 feet to park a car, you can do that with 25 feet.
That's correct.
So what is the need to reduce it to 18 feet?
We have a double frontage, and we're asking for relief from the code because there's a double street frontage.
Okay, that's not unique and singular, because the whole neighborhood, the whole street has that. My question is, what is the hardship of this property?
Every property on this street has a less than 18 feet and less than 25 feet setback. Every
Again,
one
they were
of
built
them.
in 1925, so that's not
No,
relevant
sir, that's
to
not
this.
accurate. They're not. There's the brand-new buildings that are less than that.
Yeah, the one that looks just like this one, as we heard.
No, sir, there are others.
My point is, you're not telling me the hardship.
Well,
So I guess if we're not gonna get to that,
All right, well,
my
let's-
opinion is that hardship has not been addressed for me.
All right, are there any other questions? from the
I do
board? Mr.
have
Fellow?
one other question. Mr. McLeany, can you just mentioned other properties on the street?
Yes,
that
sir.
have, can you point them out on the
I can give you-
overview? Do you have the addresses of those? That would be helpful.
the apartments at the end of Moody,
Okay.
their parking lot is directly back on the back of that building. They have virtually no setback.
I see.
This property, I don't know, this is 1312 Moody. That's 12 feet. This, oh, that's the same address,
What are you
1312.
12
measuring
feet
that
to what?
Yeah, what are you measuring that to?
Yeah, we don't understand that photograph.
That doesn't show anything.
That's just a tape that's showing you what the.
12 feet to what?
To what? No,
To
what are
the
you
edge of the
measuring?
garage.
Garage?
We can't tell that's a garage.
Well, yeah, the other.
Well,
He's testifying to this.
I'm testifying that that's it. I
understand. I
didn't
just wanna
make these photos
that's-
up.
Mr. McLeany, I appreciate these pictures. These are helpful.
Yeah, this is 1301.
Blow it up a little bit, but the other, shrink it down, I should say. Thank you. Oh, this is great gravel.
That's,
I can't tell, it's so close.
It's 12 feet.
Can you go in the
it's
other
12,
direction?
I mean, that's, it,
Look at your, could you blow it up? Shrink it, shrink it.
See, where'd it go?
shrink
There
it
you
down.
go. Keep
So
going,
you're
keep going.
you're measuring from a building to a property line, Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Okay, and the property
I'm
line
measuring from the garages that are there to the edge of the the property line
Of the property.
along Alabama.
Along Alabama, okay.
You could, Mr. Michelini, in the future, you're here before us a lot. You could testify that you measured 12 feet. You don't have to take a picture
I
of
said
it.
that, but
I know, and I appreciate the photos, but you don't have to take a picture of a tape measure at 12 feet.
No, I understand.
There's nothing else.
well,
I'm not trying to be hard on you there. I just think that's funny.
I don't mind answering your questions, and I certainly don't mind being very forthright with you. And there's been a lot of testimony about an Airbnb being the purpose of this. It's not.
Stop. Just for now, just focus on my question.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
sir.
question is.
I just want to know if you can identify other properties on this street that have a rear setback that is less than 25.
Okay, here is can you see that one?
I can
Can
see
you blow,
that.
can you
That's
blow that
very,
one up?
That's very helpful.
Actually, if you blow it up, it would be helpful. There you go.
Thank you.
Pull it down a little bit. Thank you.
All right, this is RM16. This is the subject property. And I'll just put a check mark by that one and that one. And this is where the new 2 units were. You got 3 plus this one, which is proposed, 4 out of 6.
All right. Thank you for answering my
On that side of the street.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Did you do any other alternate designs you can show us?
I don't have any alternate designs.
Okay. Mr. Villa, do you have any questions? Ms. Long? Lynn, do you have any others?
I did have a question. That apartment complex at the end of the street?
Yes.
When was that built?
I don't know exactly, but it's been there a long time.
I was curious if those if those were grandfathered in the same way the 1925 structures would have been grandfathered
I think
in?
it was probably more likely 50s that it was built.
It looks kind of 60s architecture, but I was
late
yeah.
50s, early 60s. It's not 80s or 90s. It's been there quite a while.
So the possibility that was built at a time with different code is probably pretty strong.
That's accurate.
Okay.
Am I in my?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
Miss Anthony and/or legal. We have a duplex, proposed duplex with attached garages with living spaces above the garages that are attached on the second floor so that you cannot travel between the primary residence and the space above the garage. That's the testimony we're hearing. Therefore, the set of stairs. We all understand that.
Correct.
From a zoning standpoint, okay, is there anything in the zoning regs that don't allow that, assuming that it doesn't have a kitchen? I guess it's allowed to have a bathroom, but that's a question. Would it be allowed to have a bathroom? But is there a restriction on a kitchen or a version of a kitchen might be allowed? Can you expand on that?
Tawanda Anthony Land Development, they could have an accessory structure, but they wouldn't be allowed an accessory dwelling. So they wouldn't be able to have a full kitchen, a stove, cooking appliances. That would consider it an accessory dwelling once they add the cooking appliances.
Okay, but they could have a bathroom.
Correct. They can have a bathroom, maybe
Could
a
they
wet
have
bar.
could they have a wet bar?
Correct.
A sink?
Correct.
Could they have a dishwasher with the wet bar?
Correct.
There's nothing in the zoning code that would prohibit that.
Maybe. That's more of a permitting question. They have certain guidelines that they follow in terms of if it's an accessory structure, what they're allowed in terms of cooking appliances and other kitchen appliances. But they would be able, just like if you had an office, you could have you could not have a microwave because it's a cooking appliance, but you could have a refrigerator. You could have a wet bar. So there are some parameters that do allow for some amenities that they could have in the accessory structure.
And you're saying that's not a zoning issue, that's a building department code issue?
Well, in terms of the way that it's permitted as an accessory structure. But for us, as long as there are no cooking appliances, then we don't consider it an accessory dwelling.
Okay, so accessory structure versus accessory dwelling are the definition
Correct.
differences.
And in the RM16 zoning district, as long as they meet the principal structure setbacks, then they are allowed an accessory structure.
Attached. If it were detached, it'd be a different setback, right? Or not?
Well, because of RM16, they still have to meet the principal structure
So
setback.
detached accessory structures are the same as the principal structure setbacks.
Correct. In this case, it is attached. So.
Right, no, I know, but if it weren't?
Correct.
Okay. What is the on-site parking requirement for RM16?
It's based on the use, and in this instance.
Well, in this case?
Yeah, so they need 2 spaces per unit.
So 2 spaces don't have to be enclosed, they could be outside.
Correct.
Correct? Okay. And if they were enclosed, like a garage, they would meet that requirement.
Correct.
Okay. And then the issue of backing out onto whether it's an alley, well, the rules for backing out on an alley are different, correct? Setback versus a street.
Correct.
And in this case, it's a street, hence the 25 feet. If it were an alley, it would be what?
For a 2-car garage, they're required to be set back 10 feet.
10 feet,
Correct.
okay. I had one more question for her and I just forgot it. Shoot. There's no, well, no, I think I did ask the question already. Okay, that's all I've got. Lynn, do you have another question?
Yes, I do have another question. So I'm having a hard time envisioning this. The brick deck somehow connects the unit to the garage?
It's all under one roof.
Oh, so there's a deck, there's a roof over the brick deck.
Yes.
Okay, that is where I was missing. So if these stairs went away, we would still be looking at a garage setback issue. Because the garage is only, what did we determine, 5 feet?
5 feet.
Instead of 7 feet. So we would still be looking at that even with the stairs disappeared.
Correct. If they did not meet the 7 feet, they're required 7 feet on each side.
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other board questions for anyone? Okay, Mr. McLeany, you've heard the questions, the testimony, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Okay, let me just show you that the pre and post conditions. This is existing condition, that this house doesn't meet the side yard setback as it is right now. It doesn't meet the front yard setback as it's currently constructed. This accessory structure is 0 lot line, that's on Alabama. It doesn't meet the rear yard or the side yard setback. So your post conditions will be much better than your existing conditions. So you're increasing the rear yard setback, and I'll take you back to this site plan. Where you currently have 0 and 0 here, you're increasing it to the 5 and the 18 feet. And then in the 25 feet and the 7 up here in the front of the building. So when they're talking about safety and being able to, a visual triangle around the corner of Moody and Mississippi, those conditions will be better in the post condition than they are now. So you will have that view triangle that eliminates the safety concern that they're talking about. There is no proposal and there's no intention of creating an Airbnb. These units do not have kitchens, and as Tawanda's pointed out, they would be caught at the permitting if there was ever a proposal to do anything like that. We don't only meet the code regarding parking, we exceed the code, so there's no reliance upon on-street parking. Most of the homes up and down Moody have driveways, and most of them don't have garages, so that they're relying on on-street parking for their residences. This will not increase that. As a matter of fact, it will decrease the reliance upon Moody for on-street parking. The 2 units are allowed by code, and you know, we are building that to the specifications of what's allowed by the zoning code. The units are 18 feet wide. As you've asked, were there other alternative designs that were considered? No, there weren't. none that I'm aware of anyway. And we, as I said, we had 25 feet of setback on the Moody side. Sidewalks are a condition of the redevelopment, so they have to put in new sidewalks on both on Moody and on Mississippi, the entire length of both of those property lines. They will, on the Mississippi side, they will connect to a parking lot that's used by Bella's. And it's not really a sidewalk that's existing there. You know, the current built conditions in the neighborhood, whether they're single family or not, the RM16 is allowed by right. So it's not a matter of we would love to have a single family house. Whoever buys the property or whoever finishes with this property has by right the ability to build a duplex. And they have the right to build to 35 feet in height. You know, I understand that there are other single-family houses that aren't 25 or 35 feet in height. I understand that there are other single-family homes and not duplexes. But this is, I showed you on the map that this is right in the middle of what is RM16. It's in the middle. It's not on the fringe. It's not near anything else. It's surrounded by, there's apartments over here. There's commercial and apartments down here or here, parking lots. I mean, in terms of what is traditional and what is compatible with the neighborhood, I would say that this is an area that is in a strongly under pressure to redevelop in a variety of different capacities, not just single family. Those that want to stay and remain as a single family residence, they can, but there's a lot of pressure on these properties to be converted to duplexes or apartments or you know, a number of other things. People talked about safety and, you know, that they would rather see some other things. This does not create a safety hazard for anyone. It takes the traffic off of Moody, where they have currently, as I said, they have a non-conforming structure with setbacks. They have a single car canopy that's non-conforming, and it shifts it over to the street, which is Alabama, and is currently being used for access to all the properties along Moody that are on this side of the street.
Can you wrap up, Mr. McLean?
Yes, sir. It is a permitted use. We meet the parking code. We're asking for relief from the rear yard setback off of Alabama because it's being classified as a front. Normally, under RM16, we wouldn't have to have a 25-foot setback. The other properties all along Alabama are at 12 to 13 feet. They're not at 25 feet, and some of those are new construction. I think that we have demonstrated clearly that, you know, we have met the hardship criteria. We, with respect to the comprehensive plan, it does meet that code with respect to having to meet extraordinary setbacks that were not originally planned. We cannot be injurious to other people if we're on a corner. We're on 3 streets, and the outside stairwell is on the Mississippi side. Anyway, I think that I'm certainly be happy to answer any more questions you might have, but I think that we have met the criteria, and we've demonstrated that this is a compatible use in the area. We're not violating any zoning codes, and what we are proposing is permitted.
Thank you very much. All right, without objection, I will close the public hearing and move or ask the board to make a motion, please.
I'm not prepared to make a motion. I am prepared to start a quick discussion before we get to a motion.
Would anybody else like to make a motion? Okay.
That's what I thought.
We'll have discussion.
All right. I want to make it clear that the use, while it might be opposed by the neighborhood, I don't see it as something that is really within our purview. And I do see that there is a hardship as to the 2 frontages. I think properties are entitled to have a rear yard, and this one is stuck with these 2 frontages, and I see that giving them a setback to 18 might be okay. I am not okay with the side yard setbacks. I don't see the hardship there. I don't see the reason for requiring cutting into those setbacks. So I am inclined at this stage to say I would grant the 18, but I can't grant it. I mean, I guess we could grant it to this setback, to this site plan, but I'm not okay with the side yards. And I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
Mr. Michelini was wrapping up with that multifamily is allowed per zoning in this area, which means that these lots are approved for multifamily. And so that means that when they were approved for multifamily, they were approved as the size lots that they are with the setbacks required by that zoning. So my point is, if this was approved for multifamily and this particular lot was approved as part of that multifamily approval, then it was approved assuming that it could be used with the restrictions that are put upon it to create multifamily. So I asked specifically for the hardship of the quote-unquote rear yard and did not find an answer that answered for me what the hardship was. And it was actually quite the opposite. It was the need for a car, which this setback gives quite a bit more room for a car. So I know that you can see why there could be a need for it, but we did not hear testimony of the need for it. So given that the entire row of these has the same burden, it's not unique and singular. And certainly the side yard, I think we've all discussed at length, but we didn't see any alternative designs that show why about this property makes it unique, or how could we try to address the stairs, or any of that. So I cannot support any of the setback requests.
Mr. Villa, do you have any comments?
Well, I would say that, the other properties, would be subject to the same thing on the Alabama front side, and none of those are conforming to that for whatever reason, one reason or the other, grandfathered in, or maybe they got a variance. So I would certainly, I think I would agree with Mr. Feldman's comments that, that is a hardship because that is an odd street. It really, in essence, is an alley back there, but it's called a street. And so I could certainly see why that moving that so-called front yard, having a variance with that, I think would be keeping with a fair resolution.
Sir Tack, do you have any comments?
I think I'm going to agree. I'm sorry, I'm still learning names.
Mr. Villa, Mr. Pastor.
Mr. Pastor, I at this point don't see either way. If the zoning was changed, like you said, and I'm looking at this hardship criteria, and I think that it looks like, because this was designed this way, that it is resulting from the actions of the applicant. You could design a different building to fit within the code. So I'm not understanding how that's a hardship. So that's my.
Okay, Ms. Long?
Well, I have no problem with the Alabama side setbacks, and I have no problem, and I understand the need for the stairs. I mean, you have to have, and I also understand, I believe that we were told if you move the stairs toward the center more, so that you met the required setbacks, that you would lose probably 2 parking spaces, 1 in each garage, okay? And if you have a house that size, you have to have 2 parking spaces, so that doesn't help a lot. I find the building to be huge. I feel sorry for Mr. Dawson, I guess it was, Paul Dawson, who said he's going to be sandwiched between these two. I can understand his concern. Unfortunately, that isn't our decision to make. If you want to build a 2-story house, it's allowed by code, build it. I live in a house, in a neighborhood of 1-story houses, and there have been 2 2-story houses put up on my street within a block of my house, and the people in between them are not happy. But there's anything you can do about it, So I get the dissatisfaction, but that's not our purview. Our purview is, should we let them? And I could agree with all the setbacks. I just don't have a problem.
Dr. Long, the driveways themselves will hold 2 cars each. So you could fill that entire garage full of stair and still meet the parking requirements. So that's not really a reason not to put the stair internal. Or you could put it in that brick courtyard that's just, you know, that's a nice thing to have, but is it required? So the question is, why would you put a stair 2 feet from somebody else's property? Also made out of wood, by the way, so not flame retardant, which is the reason for the setback in the first place. Now, we didn't hear any good reason why not, and we didn't see any alternative design. So I understand what you're saying, but I think when you really look at it, we didn't hear a good reason why the stair has to be 2 feet from the property line. And we didn't see any alternative where it didn't work somewhere else. They could still meet the parking requirement with just the driveway. You don't need the garage.
All right. I agree with a lot of what has been discussed and said regarding the Alabama side setback requests. I don't agree with Mr. Pastor. I think that the applicant did demonstrate a unique, and I'm not going to say singular, but a unique condition with the 2 frontages, and that because it is a street and not an alleyway, you know, they don't have the use and benefit like similar properties of the same depth that, you know, and again, we're not supposed to use other cases as precedent, but I think that the applicant demonstrated that there should be some relief on the Alabama side. I didn't hear any testimony that supported the decrease of the side yard. In fact, I heard testimony that the garages were made wider than normal for some other use, internal use. And so I think that there could be a design where the stairs could be located in a different way. And the zoning use doesn't allow or mandate the right to have separate units accessible. Yes, you can design it that way as long as you meet the setbacks. So I didn't hear any hardship regarding that aspect as to why those stairs couldn't have been repositioned. Only testimony that it wasn't looked at. So I could not support the side yard, but I would not have a problem supporting the double front or Alabama side.
I wanted to point out, we heard from several neighbors that they're concerned about the view of the turn because it's on a side street, Mississippi. So to turn from Mississippi to Alabama, you are allowing them to build a 35-foot building 7 feet further towards Alabama, which is reducing the view angle. So there's a safety concern with that we didn't talk about. And if you have cars parked in that driveway, you're pushing the parked car 7 feet closer to that road, which also reduces the view angle, which I think we heard more than one neighbor mention the fact that we're encroaching upon that corner. I doubt that they were talking about the Moody side because it's at 25 feet. So we didn't talk about that at all, but that's another reason.
Well, the testimony we heard was that everybody is using Alabama to come and go from their from their properties, and they're not so much using Moody unless they're parking on the street.
But not everybody has Mississippi running alongside their.
That's correct. But we did hear testimony.
High-speed Mississippi.
We did hear testimony
right?
that the existing structure that's there now totally blocks the view angle, and that's going away. They're substantially improving that.
Yep.
Okay. You know, yes, a car could block line of sight, but
just saying we're making it worse.
The difference between, well, actually, they're allowed to go at 7. Okay, so if we're kind of, if we're all agreeing that the side yard is still the biggest issue, they're going to be allowed to go to 7 with a parked car.
I'm talking about the rear.
I'm talking about Alabama, which in my mind is the rear.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So even if they're staying at 7 feet, they can park a car on a driveway at 7 feet.
What are we talking about 7 feet for?
Side yard to Mississippi.
Yes.
That's why you raised the concern about line of sight to Mississippi off of Alabama.
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
The further you go towards Alabama, the less you can see from Mississippi to Alabama if you're turning.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with the side yard.
But the building in this case is being asked to go to 18 feet.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't see 18 feet being a problem with view angle. That's, I guess.
It's just worse than 25, yes. Correct. Okay, that was my point.
But it's much better than the existing condition, which is 0.
Well,
Okay, so,
my perception is, when they go to permit this, transportation is gonna say, you can't do that because you're encroaching on the line of sight and
But
gets
transportation weighs in before it comes to us, so they didn't make a comment. So you're right, transportation would bring that up.
Yes, they
And they
would.
did not make a comment.
Yes, they would.
But it's not gonna be reviewed again for
You didn't have
permitting.
any
They're gonna
permits.
see that we approve it, and they're just gonna go with it.
Okay, I mean, I'm not in construction, you know more about that than I do, but to me, every time we've tried to do anything in our neighborhood, if it encroaches on the line of sight, transportation leaps up, screams bloody murder, even if it's already been permitted, which I find amazing.
okay. Any other comments or issues that want to be raised?
If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'll try a motion. and see
Okay.
what goes from there.
Okay, I mean,
Who's gonna
I
stick their
guess
neck
you,
out and
you
make a
did
motion?
imply that you might bifurcate
I don't
a
think.
motion?
I don't think we need to well, I don't think it needs to be bifurcated.
Okay,
I think I
okay. Okay.
can make a motion.
Make a motion.
All right. I move that a variance request for case VRB 19-91 for property located at 1318 South Moody Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet with an encroachment for eaves and gutters, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record, and at this public hearing, of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code. Specifically, that the multifamily zoned property has 2 frontages and is entitled to a rear yard. So they are entitled to, on this condition, a reduction from 25 feet to 18 feet. I would make it known that that does not include any side yard setback. Relief.
All right, we have that motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'd like to comment that they are not entitled to a rear yard, which is what you said. They're actually not entitled to that. That's what the motion would be for.
We are saying that the variance would entitle them to an 18 foot. Okay, clarification accepted.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second? I'll second. Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion for approval without the side yard setback consideration by Mr. Feldman, second by Mr. Brown. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Let's do a poll.
Got it
Mr.
split,
Villa?
3-3.
Aye. Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. So we're split. So that means it moves to next month?
Rules of procedure that a tie vote automatically continues, is that?
Could we take another vote? Could we try another motion?
I mean, that motion didn't pass, let me say it that
Right.
way. Okay? Now, the rules say you need 4 affirmative votes for approval. You need 3, no, but there's a tie. So, yeah, I think you're gonna verify
Hi,
that
you're
that's
supposed
a
to
tie.
continue it to the next meeting.
If there were only 5 of us voting, then if a motion were, then that motion would die on denial because of a 3-2 vote, but we had a 3-3, so. I believe it moves to the next month.
I think so.
Mr. Chairman, could I say something?
Sure, Mr. Michelini, help us out.
That, well, if the board is inclined,
Well, okay, maybe I can't. We're gonna wait for council.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the rule is Rule 5.2, and it states that when a matter is considered by the board and an insufficient or tie vote is obtained, the board's action becomes a nullity and the matter shall be automatically carried over for consideration at the board's next meeting as unfinished business.
Okay, very well.
Could another motion be made at this point?
Well, Mr. Chairman, they're your rules to interpret as the chairman, so if you want to take a look at it and interpret, make an interpretation of the rule.
Mr. Chair, I would like to withdraw my motion.
Too late, we voted, right?
We can.
No, I think in this case, we probably need to move this to the next.
It doesn't say
next meeting.
motion, it says when a matter is considered by the board and an insufficient or a tie vote is obtained, the board's action becomes a nullity. So there may be a distinction between a motion and a matter, but again, they're your rules as the chair to interpret.
Board, I mean, I'm open to another idea here.
If I can just say one thing.
Sure.
I don't want to make all these people come back next meeting. I think it's worth,
Does it
if
have
we
to be
can
done
take
de novo?
another vote,
Oh, yeah.
I think it's worth trying
Well, we
to
can
take
try.
another vote.
No, we can
on it.
try. My sense is that the issue at hand will just repeat itself, but we can try.
I don't
If
think
somebody
that's
else-
going to happen.
If somebody else wants to make another
What
motion.
kind of motion you get, because
Why
I'm
don't
not
you
sure
try a
our
motion?
reasons, various and sundry reasons are all
Would you-
the same.
Would you like to make a motion?
Oh, God, no. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that VRB 1991.
Can I state for the record?
No, you're sorry, you can't.
Well, for the record.
No,
I'm
you can't, you
objecting.
can't, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, I can. I'm objecting for the record.
Sit down, please.
Located at 1318 South Moody Avenue. Be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a front yard setback from 25 to 18 and both side yard setbacks from 7 to 2 feet per section 27-156. Based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code. Specifically that this property has 2 front yards and almost all other, I shouldn't say that, the vast majority of properties only have 1 front yard, so this property is being penalized by having a second front yard. Therefore, we approve the reduction in the front yard setback from 25 to 18. This property has a fire department requirement to stairs accessing the upstairs above the garage, which is a requirement that the occupant didn't place on it. And that came through after they had already designed the whole building. And therefore, it should be allowed to have their setbacks, their variances.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of the application as it's been submitted. Correct? Am I correct?
Correct.
All right. Is there a second for that motion? Seeing none, the motion died. Okay?
I know what's coming next.
All right, I'll try one more. I will do that. I move that the variance, I'm gonna bifurcate, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I move, we're gonna start with the side yard setback. And I move that variance request for case VRB 13-18 South Moody for the property located at 1318 South Moody, VRB 19-91, be denied as to the side yard setback reduction from 7 feet to 2 feet. Due to the failure of the petitioner to meet its burden of proof to provide competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria as set forth in section 27-80 of the city code.
Okay, we have a motion for denial on the side yard setback by Mr. Feldman and a second by Mr. Pastor. Is there any other discussion about that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, so 6-1.
No, 5-1.
Oh, excuse me, 5-1. 5-1 on the denial of the side yard setback.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move that variance request for case VRB 19-91 located at 1318 South Moody Avenue, as depicted on site plan presented at the public hearing, be granted as to the reduction of the front yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at the public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that the property has 2 frontages and that it is trying to accommodate the 2 frontages and the corner lot, and those 2 frontages in the corner lot present a hardship.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of the front yard setback by Mr. Feldman. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second by Ms. Long. Any more discussion on it? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Would we just go?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
This is just for the front yard setback?
Just for the front yard.
I'll agree with
Pardon?
that. I'll go yes.
Oh, okay, so that's an A and an I. So it's 4-2 on that approval. Okay. Are we okay, council? I guess. Yeah, pass, yeah, excuse me,
4-2.
you need the,
5-1 to deny the side yard setbacks, correct?
Yes.
And 4-2 to accept.
okay, wait, time out.
Just verifying in the, again, Rule 5, votes required as to certain measures. It does state that a simple majority shall be sufficient to conduct routine business and to deny an application. However, the vote of at least 4 members of the board shall be required to approve an application.
Correct,
So
which we
with
just had
4,
4-2.
It is
Okay.
it is approved.
Yes. Okay. All right, Mr. McElhaney. Mr. McElhaney, you know the appeal process.
Yes, sir, thank you very much.
It's not Mr. McElhaney?
That needs the understanding of the code process.
Oh, the neighbors, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Everyone understands the appeal process.
All right, yeah, you have 10 days to appeal to city council on anything the board has taken action on. So if you agree or disagree with something that was decided on this case, you have 10 days to file to city council to hear the matter with them. And the clerk will explain how that works.
Neighbors file appeal?
Yeah, anybody can file, anybody can file.
I knew the
and
petitioner
appeal.
could.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Mr. McElhaney.
That's okay. Thank you
Okay.
for your consideration, your time, and your questions, and your diligence, and your service to the city. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
We're going to take a short recess.
And one more time.